This is a Case 580 ST Backhoe. It's made by Universal Hobbies and it's in 1/50th scale. Now, this thing is cool. It really is cool. But it's also a good example of be careful what you wish for. The detail on it is astounding, but there's so much detail coupled with the functionality that all the little extra bits of detail kind of take away from the functionality. So even though it's made to do so many things, having all the bells and whistles on it, which is really cool, make it hard to do anything with. And it also makes it very fragile because it's so fine. So it's a great display piece, but that's all you can do with it. You really can't do anything with it. So right off the bat, you can see it's got just hydraulic hoses out the wazoo. It's really nice. The paint and the mirrors and just the decals and everything look great. I mean, you have pretty much every hydraulic line that should be on this backhoe is here. It's really well done. I mean, the lugs on the wheels look great. The interior of the cab looks fantastic. It's a really well done backhoe. Now, that being said, the functionality is not great. Like the range of motion, you gotta be careful with it because you can feel how fragile it is. Like that's about as far as the loader wants to raise up without feeling like I'm gonna break something. And it does dump a little bit, but it's so fragile. And you can see where you have the screw heads in place of the rivets, which really isn't terrible. I mean, it kind of sticks out a little bit, but to be honest, I don't think it's that bad. You do have a 4-in-1 bucket, and you have the lines running to the 4-in-1 bucket, which is cool, but even cooler than that, it's really hard to see. You have guards on the cylinders here for the bucket, but you really do have the bucket cylinders underneath. It's not just a hinge here. You really do have the cylinders for the mechanism. And that's really cool. You have the valve blocks there. That's really pretty awesome. You have a tooth bucket, which there aren't too many backhoes that have teeth on a 4-in-1 bucket. A lot of them, well, it's hit or miss, honestly. It seems like a lot of municipalities use 4-in-1 buckets, but most contractors don't. I don't know. I couldn't tell you the reason. Seems like a lot of times when people buy backhoes, they don't exactly spend a whole lot of money on them unless they are the go-to dirt moving machine. And then they get, plenty of options. But 4-in-1 bucket is not terribly common. They're kind of heavy for what they are. And they only have so many uses. Don't get me wrong, they can be very handy, but they only have so many uses. It really looks like the hood should open up, but I don't believe that it does. It really looks like it should, though. You have some nice decals there on the, I guess the hydraulic tank on that side, fuel tanks on the other side. Yeah. Which is pretty cool. You do have a little bit of steering underneath, but it is very small. It's cool that you have the drive lines replicated underneath that transfer case. That's neat. Now the backhoe itself, it is a side shift. The stabilizers do come down, and they have the little hinged floats on them, which is pretty neat too. You have the swing cylinders, which is nice. There's no hydraulics on the side shift, but that's okay. You have them everywhere else. I do mean everywhere else. It's crazy. You have remote lines coming up to the extend-a-hoe, which is pretty neat. You have both of those there. You have the hydraulic lines on your boom cylinder and your stick cylinder. You do have an extend-a-hoe that works. The only thing that's kind of goofy is you can see where you have the bracket holding the hoses here. The way that bracket's set up is that the further you pull out the extend-a-hoe, you had to feed your bucket hose in through this bracket to really extend it out, which is kind of goofy. I understand how it's supposed to work, but it's not quite right. And when you bring it back up, it just goes right back to where it was before, which is kind of, I don't know. I'm not terribly thrilled about that. The backhoe itself is, again, it's so fine that you really don't want to move it too much because you don't want to break something. Like, that's about as far as that boom cylinder wants to come down, which is really pretty terrible. But it's kind of that balance. Like, you want the detail, you want it to look good sitting on the shelf, but you want it to work also. And here you're real heavy on the detail and kind of light on the functionality. I think if you didn't have all the hydraulic hoses and everything on here, it probably would have a better range of motion, maybe some stiffer components too. But you know, at this size and this scale, you're kind of limited to what you can do to really make it true to scale. Ertl is a great example of that. They really go so much bigger than what the scale should be to keep their models a little bit more robust. The Ertl backhoes, you could give those to a 6-year-old and they'll probably last forever. If you give this to a 6-year-old, it'd be tore up in a day. It's just kind of the way it is. That being said, I'd actually got one of these a couple years ago, and it was in a group of other backhoes, a couple other things, and it didn't have the box, and it did not make the trip. It just did not. It's too fragile. I would not recommend buying these other than, you know, either new or absolutely in the box. They have to get shipped in the box. There's too much stuff that can break off. You know, it's just not built to be sent out that way. That being said, though, it really is a neat backhoe. It makes it difficult because, like I said, you want it to look good and you want it to be, you know, accurate and, you know, literally a scale model. But it's nice to have it actually work too, you know, and the functionality be replicated. The cab interior is just delightful. I mean, that looks really good. It's kind of funny. So you have the backhoe, right, with the 4-in-1 bucket, and you got the extended hoe and the remote lines running down. You got mirrors and everything, and you got ride control. Man, you got this thing with all the options. But you still have the wobble sticks, or the, you know, you don't have the electronic, you know, joystick controls for the backhoe, which is kind of funny. You spend all that money to get all those options and you cheap out on the controls. It's whatever. You know, everybody wants what they want. So overall, this really is a neat backhoe. I wish Ertl would take a page out of Universal Hobbies playbook and, you know, kind of up their detail. I think it's worth it to spend the money on something like this for the amount of detail you get. Now, it doesn't display great. The backhoe angle is obviously wrong. The loader can't come down far enough to actually hit the ground. So you're kind of stuck between not rolling back far enough and not being low enough to put the bucket flat on the ground. So it's like I said, it's careful what you wish for. You get all the details, but you lose functionality. There's got to be a happy medium somewhere. You know, I think NZG found it. Ertl definitely hasn't gotten there. Universal Hobbies really hasn't gotten there. There's got to be somewhere in between that makes everybody happy. Anyway, that's about all I got for this. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. Happy to answer questions. It might be a couple days before I get to them. I'm kind of busy in the summers. But, yeah, got any questions, ask away. If there's something you'd like to see, let me know. I might just have it. And as always, thanks for watching.